Okay, it's saying we're streaming live. Hello, everybody. Julia Simmers here for the Cosmic Intelligence Agency. It's great to have you online with us again today, or you might be watching this a bit later. We are here for episode 2 of Cosmic Transmissions of 2021, which are predominantly with myself as the host and my special agent 33, Olga Morales. Olga,
Hi.
hello. Thanks for
Hello,
being
everyone.
with me for episode 2. We had a great session, 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
Um,
So excited to follow up and continue everything we're, talking about.
yes, that's right. So what we did 2 weeks ago was Olga introduced the idea of Decans, the Decans or Decans.
Well, some people say Decans, some people say Decans,
Depends where you're from.
where you're
That's right.
from. So it just
If
doesn't
we
matter.
if we're not from ancient Egypt, we don't really know how to say it. So,
No.
so Olga took us through the amazing journey of, let's say, the history of the Deccan. So, if you haven't seen that episode, do, let's say, watch it. If you're interested in this topic, of course, because there's so much information. You gathered a whole lot of really wonderful information for us, Olga.
Thank
I
you.
really loved how you took us through the way the year, is kind of split up into weeks and months and all of that, and how that relates to our zodiac pretty much, and how we
Yeah,
use it. Yeah.
exactly.
Which I don't think a lot of people know,
No.
really. Okay. I mean, in this world of astrology, when 20-year-olds can become expert astrologers, it's really quite mind-boggling. So we're really happy to be able to pass on, let's say, information that has been, let's say, studied and researched for a very long time.
Yeah.
Aka someone like Agent 33, whose passion it
Well,
is to find all these things out.
well, I've read a lot of books. I mean, some of them are behind me. I've got more in boxes and will put them on these shelves. But I when I got into GAN like 15 years ago, it opened up. That's WD GAN. If people don't know who I'm talking about, he was a financial astrologer and stock Wall Street trader. When I started in doing all that, it wasn't so much the financial astrology part; it was all the esoteric part, because he had a list of books that he had for sale, and they were all to do with obviously astrology, numerology, and all this esoterics stuff, right? He was so open to all that, all the metaphysical, and how as above, so below, right? So we need to know what's up there to forecast what's down here. And he used a lot of, especially numerology, to back up with the astrology. So I've put hours and hours of work into this. It's not just me looking at the transits for the day and how they're affecting Bitcoin. Any astrology can do that, but it's
Mm,
all to do with like the research behind that, the cycles on everything, on commodities, and not just little. Basically the principles are the same, but yeah,
yeah,
it's a fascinating thing. It's so any astrologer can do what I'm doing, but they have to have the focus and the want to do it. And if you like research, is what I do, I go back to see what was happening in the past, and that's what GAN tells you to do. So, it's perfect for me being. I always say I've got Virgo rising, and I'm a Scorpio, right?
hmm
So I'm the forensic astrologer. I mean, that's what I do. I love technical analysis. I mean, you can make a forecast for anything, but then when it comes down to trading it, that's a different story, because you need to have some technical analysis skills
yeah,
to back it up. So astrology is really good for timing.
yeah,
And that's why I teach traders
yes,
astrology. It's more for timing.
that's right.
So sorry, I went on a bit of a spiel, but that's what it's all about.
No,
It's not.
yeah,
And so this deacon stuff is really the reason I got into it too, was also because of GAN, okay, because his coded novel, The Tunnel Through the Air, which apparently has all his trading secrets in it, has 36 chapters. And
yeah.
he didn't do anything, everything he did had a meaning. It wasn't a coincidence. And then there's another cycle, my book called Dawn of the Seventh Day, that Safariel was using. Now, Gan was connected with Safariel's work. And there was Safariel's got a book called The World Horoscope. The World Horoscope. Not many people even know about it. And he used a cycle of 36 years that he calls the Hebrew cycle. So it goes back way back into biblical Kabbalah type of energy. It's like the Rosicrucians were using it. And it's based on the pattern that I'm going to show you. It's got the rulers, the planetary rulers that change. But so, and also, I'm going to keep talking while it's coming into my head. When we look at the Decans, they also had a lot of fixed stars in them, okay? That obviously comes from Egypt, and that was used. But because of the precession of the equinoxes, those fixed stars in that 10 degrees is going to change over time. So their stories change, their myths change, the heroes change, the gods and goddesses change. So, for me, looking at the Bible, I know the Bible is encoded with planetary cycles. And, that's what fascinated me as well. Not that I'm ultra religious, but you can see the text. If you look at it as a text about what they were looking at and sort of see that it's coded, and that's why Gan tells you to read it. It's the best book. You can start seeing how did they cover the astrology, the cycles, because they weren't allowed to talk. And like the Bible, when the Bible was actually released, it wasn't for the masses. It was only for obviously the priests. It wasn't for the general public or the parishioners, whatever you want to call it, because it has a lot of esoteric stuff in it. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what got me crazy. Like I can talk about this for ages. So that's why I've got books and books and papers, and I've just been studying forever. So that's how I come to this. And I love the fact that then when the Golden Dawn then started attaching the tarot cards to the Decans as well, you can bring in that sort of more esoteric link in with them. And it's interesting because if you look at the changing of the planetary cycles for each decan, you can see how the tarot cards change as well. Their energy changes, so it's a fascinating study, I must say. Anyway, there you go. There's my spiel.
Well, we're going to look into more of that in a minute, but I just wanted to say hello to those on Facebook here with us. Hi, some agents, Agent 1123, Agent 91, I can see. Good to see you guys.
Hi, everyone.
So, Olga, it's what you're saying, it's, astrology has so many levels. It's just not a surface thing. It goes deep. It's got, there's so many sort of, again, histories behind everything that we do. And sometimes these days it feels as though, like, I hear stuff by, some of the younger ones and go, where did they get that from? Like,
it's invented.
That's right. It's almost like, anything can be said, which is, somewhat taking away from the history, the depth, and the magic of astrology. It's almost like, let's kind of, well, I don't know, make it up. I'm sure a lot of it's intuited as well. But, anyway, you've got to be careful out there. Just, seasoned astrologers are called seasoned for a reason. But the other thing is, the reasons we do astrology, of course, is to live magically and, to align ourselves with the turning stars and the cosmos, is always so inspiring, and it gives us a lot more meaning to everything that we do, and hence why we do it. We see it happening, we see it turning. I was just going to ask you about what you said about the decans. So the decans that we use now, or the decans that we use now, are they aligned with the stars of now?
Well, that's an area of research. Where do they fit in now, and what stars fit into those each 10 degrees? I mean, I'm been trying to dabble in that and adjusting it. So I'll show you when I share my slides, I'll show you some of the old charts. Not that old, but you can see how they would align the fixed stars in at 10 degrees. So that's going to change, obviously. and the stories change. That's where myths come from. Nearly all our myths are astro myths.
Right.
Whatever's happening up there, they create the stories.
So it would be good to see a Decan chart for connected to the stars at this time. Okay.
Yeah, where we can do that next episode. I'll put another wheel around the Decan wheel with the stars, and we'll have a look how they fit in.
So it would be a really good project for some of the CIA agents to get, well, the starry ones like Gemini.
Yep.
And some of our Vedic astrologers, because of their way, someone like Christian Koenig, so real star, followers, let's say, like the real star followers,
Yep.
and maybe sort of look into a kind of adapted Decan wheel.
That'd be great project. Yeah.
So listen, why don't we go off to share your screen, because I know you've got lots of great stuff for us again today. So yeah, following on from last week's episode, everyone. There we go.
Okay.
And just the bottom, yeah, there you go. Great.
All good?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so from leading on from last episode, I showed the ceiling in the Temple of Hathor at Dendara, or Dendera. This is another pronunciation. And on the ceiling, you can see the zodiac signs. Here's Aquarius, Pisces is here. So there's a whole panel, but beneath them, there's all these little gods and goddesses on their arcs or their boats, and they're all the Decans in Egyptian. Well, this is more, it became more like the Greek influence here, but you can see how there are stars in all of these. So each one of these decans had fixed stars associated with it. Now, how do we know which ones they are? That's the challenge that's the dating part. If we can go back, we can probably estimate. I know some people probably have done it, but I don't know. I'll look into it anyway. But now what I wanted to show is that I just wanted to mention sometimes the myths, we say that Aquarius is an air sign, but in myths and stories in the Bible is actually connected with the water. So Aquarius is located in the parts of the heavens that was called the sea because it was surrounded by watery figures. Remember, Capricorn was always a sea goat. It always had a tail, right? Cetus the whale, we can't see it on this diagram, but it's over here, the massive whale. There's Hydra the serpent up here. Oh, no, where's Hydra? Down here somewhere on this one. And then there's Pisces the fish, and also the Pisces australis, which is the southern fish, which is a big fomalhaut, which is the mouth of the southern fish. And that's one of the 4 Royal Persian stars. Okay, that I haven't mentioned about that before, but this is the big fish down here, the southern fish. So even though we call it a air sign, it's actually a water sign, and it has been connected to the flooding, Noah's flood in the Bible, and it's also brings flooding, and is also connected with very cold weather because Aquarius is known to be the coldest sign in the zodiac according to weather forecasting. I've got one of these. I've got an amazing book.
Humors. We often call them the humors of the zodiac. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the hot, cold, dry, wet. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and this is one of the pictures I wanted to show you. This was drawn in 1693 by Ignatius Pardies. He was a French Jesuit and professor of mathematics at Paris. So you can see here, I like it because it's so detailed. You can see the 0 Aries, so that's the equinox point. And he's divided it into 3 sections. So they're the 3 sections, 10 degrees each, and then we get into Pisces here. So you can see that in that part, whether it's on the ecliptic or not, there would have been some fixed stars in that 10 degrees. Now, not all of them used, like from my research, it wasn't just the ones that were, close to the ecliptic that they were using. They're also using the ones that were quite high up, beyond this is the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn.
The way, I remember learning about fixed stars is that they draw a line like perpendicular into the ecliptic. So yeah, they can be anywhere in the sky and say that they're, you know, kind of at that zodiac degree, which is kind of crazy, isn't it? But you have to be aware that that's what's happening, you know, because
Yeah,
you're not
that's right.
looking at it on the ecliptic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're really good charts. You can see how big Cetus is. It's a huge constellation, and you can see all the water symbolism associated with Aquarius. So I love these charts. I've got a few that I had printed. Now, this is also, we're going into the beginning of this stupid thing comes up, honestly. Sorry. Um, I don't know why I've got it, but so we're moving into the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and there's a time period. There's an orb for that. Okay, so with all this Aquarium, with the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, it's like the dawning of this age, and this is the most important part of the in terms of long cycles, and we can see the four fixed signs around Jesus here, and the Vesica Pisces. And then we've got the world card in the tarot, which is 21. It's actually exactly the same. So it's got the Leo, Taurus, Leo, Eagle's always associated with, or the Aquila with Scorpio. And then we've got Aquarius, which is a man or the angel. Okay. So we're this year, we're moving in because of the focus on the fixed signs, we're going to have fixed energy. So when I teach the traders, just simple terms, because we've got planets in fixed signs, every time something transits in a fixed sign, obviously there's going to be more activity. Okay. And the fixed signs are often, in terms of the globe, more associated with earth changes because they're fixed, they last longer, and heavy patterns, more like earthquakes and world, changes. I don't want to get too negative. And I love this picture. This is from I can't remember. It's in a church in Italy, and you can see the globe, and you can see the zodiac around it, and you can see Jesus with these angels here, right on the cusp between Pisces and Aquarius. Right, he's right on the cusp of it, and he's moving into it. So Jesus sits at the cusp of the end of Pisces, beginning of Aquarius. This is now, I'm saying it's a dawn of the age of Aquarius. Now, there's a lot of symbolism in the Bible. When we talk about the Son of God, it's usually the Son, and of man. So Jesus was called the coming of the Son of Man. They're waiting for the coming of the Son of Man, which is actually Aquarius. So, okay, so that's that little spiel. So this is when we eventually do our workshops on the Decans, I hope some people will be interested because you're going to learn a lot about your own chart. You'll get this handout, and I'm going to create a small booklet, workbook, so that will be part of the workshop. And what I've done here is I've actually got all the decans, the ruler, the time of the year, 10 degrees, and what tarot card is associated with it. So I've made it easier for you. So today we're going to be talking at about 32 and 33. Of course, it's 33 because we're into this. The sun's moved into these areas now, and we've got two new rulers that we have to look at. Now, the rulers are going to make an influence about that little 10 degrees. So, you might be in Aquarius, but what part of Aquarius are you in? That little 10 degrees is going to change a lot of how you are compared to the one, before or after you. So there's a little bit of difference that you can, sort of, yeah. Okay.
I love this, Olga. I just want to say that Olga, at one of our retreats a few years ago, this was kind of one of the group sessions that we did, like as a fun thing, to actually do our charts, our astrology charts in relation to our, the tarot cards as they are laid out here. And for those that know tarot cards, it gives you sort of another sort of depth of understanding your own astrology chart. So anyway, but we'll do that in the workshop. But yeah, it was quite a fascinating.
Yeah, creating Yeah,
Sorry?
creating a mandala with
Of
your
the tarot cards.
of your birth chart with you. It's really
Yeah,
remember how excited everyone got, thinking, oh my
yeah.
God.
Yeah, well, I remember also doing that online for the CIA post during. Remember the great square? What did we have? The big fixed cross like a few years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this is also a really interesting way of looking at it in a mundane sort of sense of, using the cards according to this to
Hmm.
denote the square. Okay, I mean,
You can use it for anything,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of
it's
astrologers out there that use tarot and astrology. A lot of us have, let's say, learnt so much about archetypes through the tarot cards as well as, connecting them to the astrology. Of course, they're very different. I know, Olga, you don't do many readings, but I think there's quite a few agents and astrologers out there that, again, use two, let's say, complementarily.
yeah, no, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I stopped, like, having clients and they'd come and say, they'd have their astrology reading and they say, oh, can we do a tarot card reading as well? And I would say no, because it was like there's no need to do both in my world, but some people do. Anyway, to let's say, um just finish up the session with, more of a visual representation of the chart, because
Yeah,
visuals and images, talk to us on a different
they
level.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're all encoded with what you need to
Yeah.
know.
So anyway,
Yeah.
that's a fascinating sort of journey to do that. So thanks for reminding us of that, Olga.
Yeah, that's okay. So we're into this the sword. So because Aquarius is an air sign, the air signs are connected. If we have a look down here in my little legend here, the air signs are connected with swords. Okay, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So it's all, and we know that the air sign is to do with our mind and also talking with people, and the signs of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius is all about people and groups and communication. So that's what we're into. Well, today the swords are connected to that in the
But
tarot.
but
Yep.
also that area of the sword, like the swords are almost like the malefic malefic of
Yeah,
the
you're right.
tarot
Yeah,
cards.
because it's a
Um,
five. The
yeah, and that
fives are
middle.
the word. Yeah,
Yeah, and the
sorry.
fives and the middle sections are the hardest. So it's almost like the squares. So, it makes sense
Yep,
for
yep.
now,
You're
for
right.
sure.
Yep, exactly. So I showed this last time just to show you that when we started in Aquarius and we did last episode, we looked at Venus. The amazing thing about it is that I love sacred geometry. Like we need to know the numbers as well. When you put connect all the times that each one of these decans is ruled by the same planetary ruler, you can see Venus, 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 and Venus up here. There are 5 points, so it creates a pentagon or pentagram. The only one that gets 6 is Mars. Mars gets 6 because I don't know, they needed one more, so they fitted him in, and he looks
Connects the
after
beginning and the
the
end.
beginning and the end. That's like the alpha omega, and that makes
Uh-huh.
sense to me. You have to have, so there's a circle, but there's almost like an overlap where it starts and begins, and so it's got to be almost like the same ruler, you know.
Right, right,
And
right.
so when you divide the 360 or 36 by 7, you get 5.14828. This isn't a continuous number that keeps going, and it's called septimal law, and it happens to be the same angle as the Great Pyramid of Giza, and it also happens to be the same longitude as Stonehenge in England. So, the 52 is really important, and the 7. So you can't have a 5 without a 7. So there's always a quintile and a septile involved with the sacred geometry. So then we get our 52 weeks as well. So these are the decans ruled by, and now we're moving on to Mercury because we're in the Mercury phase now. So you can see he starts off with air, then it goes to earth, goes to water, goes to earth again. So sometimes I double up on the element and then goes to fire. So you can imagine Mercury going through those different elements as well. That's going to change his character and also the sign. Okay, he's going to be stronger and weaker in those signs, whatever. Everyone sort of can make a
So
story.
Oh, I mean, be really, I mean, I might do this after this, but,
Yeah.
write them all out, like which decans ruled by what. I mean, it'd be fascinating study also to do, like when I don't know, but let's say a slower moving planet or even Jupiter, which I think you're going to look at a bit later,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, is when it was in its last decan as well, just all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff.
I
Yeah.
mean, this can be a whole. You can do a lot of stuff with it. I mean, it's just
Ah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. Those into
Mm.
numbers and lots of maths, which
Yep.
is actually very Neptunian. People love this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I've got the Sun conjunct Neptune, so
Yes, there you go. And
wow.
I'm very Neptunian, so I love to get
I
stuck
can't
into
help
numbers.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'll just repeat this if you didn't watch last episode. So I recommend that you go back to one and follow us each episode because it's going to be progressive. So we have two orders. Some people may not know that every day of the week is controlled by a planet. Every hour is controlled by a planet. Every minute is controlled by a planet. You can cut down people that use planetary hours to do their work or ceremony or magic, whatever you want to use it. It's based on this anyway. So we start with
It's
Sunday.
the fractal of time, isn't it?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
planets. Yeah.
So if we start with Sunday, which is ruled by the sun as number 1, and we go down and we go to the moon, number 2. So it creates a heptagon or a 7-pointed star. Then we go to the moon Monday, and then we go across to number 3, which is Monday. I'm going to say lunar is lunar, luna in Italian. Everything is lunar or lunatic comes from that word. So then we go to 3, the third. Third day is Mars, and that's Tuesday. And in Italian, it's martedì, like the Latin words really resonate with the planets. Then we go from Mars. So Tuesday, we go to Wednesday, we go to Mercury's day, and is Wednesday, and Mercury is mercoledì in Italian, and is related to merchants and merchandise. They're the words that come up from Mercury. Then we go to the 5th day, which is controlled by Jupiter, or Thursday. And in Italian, Jupiter is Jove, and that's where we get the word jovial from. So anything that's jovial is connected with Jupiter. Even Giovanni is connected to Jupiter, which is John. And then we go from Thursday to Friday, Venus's day, and Friday in Italian is Venerdì. So you get the V, and anything starting with V is pretty much connected to Venus. And that's why we don't eat, not supposed to eat, we eat fish on Friday because Venus is exalted in Pisces, as we know. So that was still from the pagan times. The Christians still took it in. Okay. So that's why we eat it on Friday because of
So,
Venus.
so this diagram shows the order of the Chaldean decans.
No, there's
No?
two. There's two. I'll show you.
Uh-huh.
So there's the days of the week, right? And just let me finish this. And then the 7th day is Saturn. Okay. So that Saturn is Sabato in Italian, the Sabbath. And so that's why we rest on, we don't do anything with the Hebrew calendar. We don't do anything on the 7th day or Saturday because it's a day of rest. Saturn is called rest in the Bible. And so we stop working at sunset. I think it's on the Friday night, and we stop working on Saturday. So that's
Mhm.
still coming on from these planetary hours. Now the Chaldean order is one around the outside.
On the outside,
Okay,
yeah.
so the Saturn's furthest away. So we go Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. So you've
Mhm.
got 2 cycles here. So one is called the
But
natural cycle and one's the diurnal cycle in the middle.
so it's relative to the speed, Saturn slowest and Moon the fastest.
Yeah, because that's all they could see at that time. It was
Yeah.
only out to Saturn, right? So this is where, when you look at our everyday activities are ruled by the planets, whether we know it or not. Like today's is Wednesday, and it's ruled by Mercury. Okay, I think so. Okay, so the 20th of January, that's when we first went into Aquarius. And I'm not going to go into too much because I made a mistake last week and I just wanted to correct it. I had the wrong card in here. I had the Five of Wands rather than the Five of Swords. As I said, air is always swords. So that was my mistake. But the meaning, the write-up was exactly the same. Okay, so I'm not going to go over it again because I did it last week. But the
Well,
next one,
I just like that the Decan is, over the last 2 weeks was ruled by Venus.
yeah.
And we had such a big shift in, we'll talk about in a bit, the GameSpot trading and, I mean, things.
And all the stuff that's happened. Exactly. You're right.
Yes.
That's so right. And it's like defeat. I mean, in a way, yeah, we'll talk about it a bit more.
It's the competitiveness that you see in this Five of Swords.
Yeah.
Maintaining peace. I mean, it's rebalancing things for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So next we're into, we've just moved, what's the date today? Today's the 3rd. So we've just moved into, on the 30th of January, we moved into the second decan of Aquarius. And this is ruled by Mercury. Okay. And Jupiter's just about, has already moved into it. And so I'll show you some slides about that. So let's have a look at what it means in terms of the cards. So this comes up with the Six of Swords. So it's supposed to be related to reason. Even though this picture looks a bit daunting, see, the tarot cards look a little bit daunting to what we would probably talk about in terms of astrology. According to the card, it says earn success, intellectual endeavors rewarded, success after anxiety and stress, transition, change, rite of passage, and releasing baggage. So it's like they're moving away. I mean, I'm not a tarot reader. I mean, I'll put the cards up. It's not my thing. So I'm sure people who are really into the tarot, they'll get more meaning out of these cards as we put them.
I like the words growth and reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because 6 is a positive number. It's a 6 is.
Mm-hmm. Which is very mercurial, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So and yeah, okay. And so it's because Mercury is the ruler of this decan, I thought we'd look out because he's just turned retrograde on the 31st of January. I like these. These charts come from Astro.com. They're really great. And what I like is that this year the Mercury goes retrograde in all the air signs. Okay, now this changes every year, so it's got a real energy to this shifting of Mercury. And this, in a way, this sums up everything that's happening. We've got Aquarius is all to do with the groups. Gemini is a media, communication, newspaper. Okay, and then Libra is social. So we've got social media groups. Okay, and this is what's been happening with all the trading at the moment with the groups, like
together to defeat the system.
yeah, like Reddit. They all got together on this forum and created that Wall Street Bets, which is social media, and then created, started trading against the big Wall Street hedge fund. So I think this is going to continue for the whole year because this energy is not going to change with all this Aquarian.
Now, Mercury is also the ruler of trading, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
I was in London, what was it, 2 years ago, and Laura and Alex took me through the whole financial district. And Mercury, the statue of Mercury, the winged messenger, is everywhere. On every building, on every corner. It was just like, it's a really cool kind of trip to do through, this trading area, big financial district. So Mercury is the trickster of the trade for sure.
He is. And lots of, as I said, a lot of the words connected with him. Merchandise and merchant, and merchants, if you look back, when they were merchants, it's all connected with Mercury.
Yeah.
Like he's it. So,
I just want to add, Olga, like when we do astrology, we might look at the bigger transits that are happening, like let's say Saturn square Uranus at the moment, and this year, but it's the subtle sort of movements of things like the moon and Mercury and Venus and Mars, the kind of quicker moving planets that trigger things off. And that's what you're going to learn to watch, right? you know, because you won't pinpoint any timing with looking at the big planetary movements.
Well,
Anyway,
it's like the outer moving planets are more horizontal. And when you look at, like the graph,
yes,
and then you get the faster moving planets more on a diagonal. And
yeah,
so they're the ones that trigger everything. Yeah, that's
yes,
right.
triggers for sure.
Yeah, so that this is so interesting this year. So the air signs are going to have more activity in their lives, and also this can be connected to, obviously, if you're trading stocks, if they've got a high focus on air, they'll probably be having more activity in their the stock market, their actual value. So what I wanted to show here was this. I also love about sacred geometry involved with the planets, and Mercury has actually got, when he's got 3 inferior conjunctions during the year, which is this blue, which I just showed in the air signs. When you divide that, the distance between that is almost 120 degrees, but it's actually 116 degrees. Okay, and when you divide that into the year, you get 3.148, and this is like, that's the symbol, that's pi. Okay, so we know Venus does phi, which is a golden mean ratio, and Mercury does pi. So the ancient astrologers knew the sacred geometry that these planets made. Now, pi and phi are both encoded in the Great Pyramid of Giza. Okay, it's sacred geometry, it's sacred measure. I'm not going to go too much into it because this all goes back to Jehuti, Hermes, Jehuti was in Egypt, then they called him Thoth, then they called him Hermes, and then he became Mercury in the Roman. Okay, so it links back to Egypt as well.
I love the
Yeah,
fry and the pie.
yeah. There's a pie
Fry
in the
and
fire,
pie,
fire in the pie.
the fry and the pie and the pie.
Yeah.
Come up with something, a T-shirt for that, I think.
Yeah, we could. So as I mentioned before, Jupiter moved into the second decan of Aquarius, ruled by Mercury, on the 1st of February, okay, only 2 days ago. And I've got this, this wording is from Austin's book that I talked about last week. He's got, I've been told this is out of print. So people going, oh, you're so lucky to have it. So, you know, what I like about it, he goes into every planet in a decan, not just the sun. Okay, so it's more detailed. So this is his wording. So he says, those born with the Jupiter in the second decan of Aquarius have a wisdom which stands comfortably outside of the norm. Jupiter's power here is to bless the unusual, the new and untried with rigor and reason. So if you're born, so it's not, I mean, if you're born with Jupiter in the second decan of Aquarius, this relates to you. Okay. So you would have to have been born either 12 years ago, 24 years ago, 36 years ago, because it's a cycle of 12. Okay. So I went back and I had a look at who had this, and I've got Helena Blavatsky, who started the Theosophical Society. Now that was so radical and changing, and we still, it started a whole new movement. Walt Whitman, the poet, that's so famous. Louise Hayes is now passed away. She started Hay House, and that was all inspirational works, and she's got a whole publishing house that's still alive. Jerry
She was
Lewis,
kind of like in a way, one of the newer, not new, but a new age publisher, like,
yeah,
big time.
that's right, big time, big time. And that was because she had cancer, and she wanted to work out why she had cancer. And she found that, all our thinking and emotions and what we have in here affects our body. So she came up with affirmations every day to heal the body through our positive thoughts. Clearing, healing disease is what she came up with. And that's how it started her journey. Okay.
It's kind of like the norm now to understand that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, our thoughts create everything.
Yeah.
So, and then there's Jerry Lewis, famous comedian, obviously, and actor. Hugh Hefner I had to put in there. I mean, it's just, I can't say that he had a wisdom that outstands outside the norm, but maybe he did in his way. Who knows?
He was certainly into having fun with a lot of
people. That's right. The group, yeah, exactly. Fun with the groups. Yeah, okay. Karen Carpenter, from the Carpenters, her music style and them, they were really different. Jim Carrey, another comedian. Eddie Izzard is another comedian, is from the UK. Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses, and Garth Brooks, who's a very famous, country and western singer in the States. Now, the interesting thing to me is that when I looked at these, there's 3 well-known comedians in this cycle, okay?
Right.
And that makes sense because it's like that their wit and getting it out really quickly, and I just thought it was very cool. Now, the
Yeah.
asterisks here, pardon?
I said, yeah, really good kind of connection there too.
Yeah. And so I wanted to have a look at, I put up,
because it's not just looking at Jupiter in Aquarius for all different people. It's Jupiter in Aquarius in that decan.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's focused on that because it's ruled by Mercury, who is the trickster, okay, and can tell lies and can tell fibs and make you laugh. And then, and I just think this is where the numbers come in. I love my numbers. So if you look at, sorry, what did I do? Wrong way. If you look at the difference between, so Jim Carrey is born in 1962 and Jerry Lewis is born in 1926. So they're like 62 and 26, they're a mirror image of each other. And that's because they're divided by 36 years. And anything that adds up to 9 in numbers gives you often a mirror image. Okay. Now, this is also the 36th year that I was talking about with Safarial. So this works, okay? But what I find amazing is that Jerry Lewis had Jupiter and Venus in this 3rd decan of Aquarius. And Jim Carrey, he's got Jupiter, Mercury in this. So he's got even Mercury in there. So this is full on for him.
Mm.
And both of them, the ruler, if we use the modern ruler of Aquarius, which is Uranus, they've both got it on the midheaven, both of them. So
Oh, wow, yeah.
it's something really amazing about, and there's more in here too. You can see that Jerry Lewis has got Jupiter opposite Neptune, and this is a lot to do with the acting, the cinema, and the also in terms of midpoints. That's called gain without effort. It's a very lucky, even though it's an opposition, with midpoints, it's not always a negative thing, but it can bring him success easily. Okay. But but if he holds it or not is a different story. And Jim Carrey, but he's got a square. So, it's interesting that he's got an opposition, but the Neptune comes into it because Neptune is all about films and acting and fantasy and creating these characters that it's almost like they've got schizophrenic
Yeah.
tendencies or something,
Yeah.
multiple personalities come out
Yeah.
of them, and they're so expressive. So I just found it amazing when I looked at this is why I like doing a couple of these charts. So
Okay. No, it's
yeah.
a good way to show what we can see. Yeah.
Yeah. So then of course I always got to look back at the stock market because that's what I like to do as well because everything is related. So I basically have plotted on this Dow Jones chart every time Jupiter was in that decan, the 10 degrees of Aquarius, and we can go back in time and have a look. I've only just plotted the years. I'm not going to put all the dates. You can find that for yourself. But the interesting thing is for me is this 2009 at the bottom of the global financial crisis is when Bitcoin got its started. And this is basically just before Jupiter had moved into Aquarius. So, it's amazing how it all works. So
And
all of these,
timing, yeah, is
yeah,
incredible, isn't it? For the great financial crisis and the birth of Bitcoin out of
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So So I thought now if you want to talk about Bitcoin, we can.
I just wanted just that graph that you had before, that Dow index is going really, really quite high, isn't it?
Yep.
Right. Which is always something to watch once it goes so high.
Well,
Is that
if it,
correct?
they say that the quicker it goes up, the quicker it comes down because it's like gravity. Okay.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
like, yeah. So it's I haven't got who knows what's going to happen here. Really, I
Oh,
mean,
that goes to 2014. So yeah, it's not up to what's now
No,
2020.
that's now, but I think I've put it on a
Oh,
monthly
yes.
so
Oh,
that,
sorry, it is. I'm looking at the
yeah,
top
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
gotcha.
yeah,
Okay. Well, anyway, just
yeah,
thanks for that.
yep.
I won't say any more.
No. So, you know, the interesting thing is, Jules, you mentioned, which I hadn't looked at, so I'm going to credit you for this, is that um, we've got Vesta. This is a planet, well, asteroid called Vesta. And in the Bitcoin chart, which is a third, well, now there's so many charts, so we've sort of just using the one when the release, wasn't it, Jules, the blockchain?
It's the first release of the blockchain sort of technology, like setting it in motion. And just to explain, there's many different, let's say, locations that have been used for this time chart of 615. It's kind of ranges from Dublin to Tokyo to London, and therefore Olga's using just the zero Aries chart here, not to make the houses most
Yeah,
specific, because really I don't think it's clear enough that we know it's actually London, right?
yeah,
That it was
yeah,
started from. There are a few other charts in Bitcoin that let's say do have a timing, like when the first email that was written, it was a few days later that said, hey, it's on, right? Like to the
yeah.
email list, hey, come and get your coin, right? And I have a timing of that in another video that I've just actually outed. It used to be in just our membership. We did it 3 years ago, but now I've put it onto YouTube, so you can find it on the front of our website if you want to have a look. So I won't go into all of that, but just to be aware that there are some different charts. And a few days later, it actually makes Jupiter in Aquarius and Mercury quite closer to stationing retrograde in this chart. So a stationing Mercury, he's very close to it there. But the ancient astrologers like Dimitri George say any planet that's within 7 days, or especially Mercury, within 7 days of stationing, we have to take notice. And in this chart, Mercury is just on the cusp of 7 days of stationing, which makes Mercury much more tricky, okay, which really suits Bitcoin in Aquarius already. Another thing that I just like to point out is that this Bitcoin Genesis chart, let's say, actually has the Uranus Saturn opposition in it. Okay. So it
Yep.
was birthed at the time, which perfectly suits kind of the overtaking of the system. Saturn was, like in mythology, the one that castrated his father Uranus.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's like the new technology sort of castrating the father again, with the way things have always worked, represented by Saturn in Virgo, to the chaos of a new system coming into place. And so in 2021, we have 3 squares of, Saturn and Uranus, as we can see, happening from Aquarius to Taurus at the moment. So it's a really significant year for Bitcoin because it's kind of part of the system there. Just another thing I wanted to point out, of course, that there's 2 planets that are in exaltation in the Bitcoin chart, and that's Mars in Capricorn and it's Venus in Pisces. So both Venus and Mars are very, very activated in their kind of prime positions in this chart. And you haven't got Black Moon Lilith in there, but Black Moon Lilith is conjunct Pluto in this chart, which makes a sextile to Venus in Pisces, which makes a sextile to Vesta in Taurus. So all those points are really sort of significant that's a pretty bountiful signature, sextiles between Taurus, Pisces, and Capricorn, creating kind of a midpoint between them as well, of Venus. So, watch that space. And as you were saying, Olga, it reminded me to look at Vesta in the Bitcoin chart because I hadn't heard anyone talk about it before.
No.
But Bill Meridian was the one that, let's say, taught you or showed you that Vesta is important for investments. makes
Yeah,
sense,
he
doesn't
did. Yeah.
it?
He I can't remember I was trying to look it up in a book that the actual reference where he got it from. He someone taught him about it
Yeah, okay.
years ago.
Yeah,
And so he's done quite a bit of work on it. And yeah, so Vesta means investments. And I just think it's interesting in the Bitcoin chart because it's at 0 degrees of Taurus. Where's
yeah.
my mouse gone? I don't know. I have to use my finger here.
Yeah,
I've
no,
used
it's really a fascinating chart. So, keep an eye on Vesta. It's really we'll look at the transits of this in a minute, but I just wanted to also add that the nodal axis here is in Leo and Aquarius, and of course Jupiter's just passed that as well, since Bitcoin's been sort of so up and down. But what that shows is also that these nodes are actually on the nodes of Neptune. Okay, so the planetary nodes, which are, from a heliocentric perspective, the nodes crossing the sun line, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
these are points that are becoming much more significant to, let's say, watch on a collective level.
Mm.
I've actually just been reading Mark Jones's new book. What I'll show you, The Planetary Nodes and Collective Evolution, if anyone wants more information on that. But it's so significant that this kind of new technology, this new system for the people, which is being reflected in other ways and other coins, has got a Neptunian connection, which is about pretty much equalizing what's available for the collective. And we've been kind of looking at this since Pluto has come into Capricorn, haven't we? That,
Yeah, yeah.
it's kind of transforming the system that always was, the powerful system, the corrupt system. Not that, all of those things are just going to go away, but, to level it up in Aquarius is so good to see. A lot of people are very excited about what's going on. For a good reason, hey? The little
Yeah,
fish have got some leeway now, yeah?
yeah, that makes sense. The little fish and the big fish, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a interesting chart, but again, if you want to know more about the Bitcoin that the agents have put together, check out our website for the video that I uploaded for you all.
Mhm.
Because we've got more information about that there. What's your next slide, Olga?
Oh yeah, I just
Oh,
wanted to show the high that we've just had in
yeah,
Bitcoin on the 8th of January.
there you go.
It was like Venus was right up there and Mars was right on conjunct Vesta.
Oh, there
And
you go.
as you said, transiting Vesta was right on Saturn.
Yeah, and opposite that Uranus, so
Yeah.
transiting Vesta was
Mm,
stationing. She just turned
yeah.
retrograde a few days later at 21 of Virgo.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, this is interesting in itself. You'd think a transit of a planet to Saturn would actually kind of be the opposite, but it was the high. But then the drop came a few days later because we could foresee that, couldn't we? We could see Mars squaring Saturn, and
Yeah, and yeah.
on Mercury,
Yeah.
and that was just something to sort of say, well, it's kind of inevitable that it will drop
Yeah.
at that time, and it did.
And also Saturn was conjunct Mercury that day.
Yeah,
It
that's what I
was,
mean.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you say that.
And a
Yeah.
Mercury return, and
Yeah.
even
Everything was happening.
yeah, that was a bit too early for Mercury to be stationing, but again, it was kind of in that same area
Yeah.
of the chart, which is, and we've got Neptune on Uranus too, which is, I think it shows the volatility and the chaos that will continue. It's going to be
Mm.
so up and down over the coming years, because Neptune is going to be at that degree or on that Uranus for another 2 years or so.
Yeah.
So again, keep an eye on Vesta and what she's up to for sure in this chart. Just another thing I'd like to point out is that the Venus star point that's coming up, Venus at the moment has just, let's say, is just entering what some would call the underworld, but going into the sun's beams to, let's say, disappear in her movement outside, away from us. And she's moving very fast, and she's going to overtake the sun, but pretty much she disappears for about 80 days or something from our skies. And it was often looked at as the time that Venus was in the underworld, but I'd like prefer to actually say that she's in the upper world. She's actually gone to some kind of higher realm to explore and discover. But her star point is going to be conjunct that moon of,
Okay.
again, how close that timing is. It still will be pretty close, that the star point of 4 degrees of Aries is on this Bitcoin moon. So, this is quite volatile. We'd have to look back to 2017 when the retrograde happened in Aries, and then 2017, 2000, and it's a 4-year track. 2019, 2000 and what am I saying? 2013 and 2009, okay, to have a look at the star points. And the Bitcoin had just started in 2009, of course. So anyway, an interesting cycle to add to this. And as we can look into the future of this, there's a few big things coming up with that sun. Uranus is going to trine that sun later in the year, the Bitcoin sun, isn't it? And there was a few other things happening as well. Oh, of course, Jupiter going on to the natal Venus, and he actually stations on that natal Venus. So there's some really big things happening, with this chart, and for Bitcoin, as an alternative currency, which just makes so much sense in this sort of sign of the times.
That's great. Yeah.
It's the sign of the times, that it's equalizing things for a lot of people as well.
The equalizer, as you called it, it's a good name.
Yes. Well, it's the Aquarian, we want the same for everyone or the same opportunities, which have been very much taken away from us by, the power of banks and financiers and, the elite, as we know. And we've been, let's say, standing up to the system, since 2009, when Iceland, sacked its bankers, and the Occupy movement started, and all these things have added to where we are today. And so seeing something like this rise up, which seemingly will be wanting to, the what do you call it, the system will want to control it somehow, but it's kind of got a lot more freedom than they'd want it to have, hey?
Well, in the Bible, in the Bible, I'm going to say, in Matthew it says, blessed are the meek, because they will inherit the earth. It doesn't say blessed are the elite, that they will. So it's got a lot to do with Aquarian energy, that it will inherit the earth. So
very inspiring. I mean, as we look into the digital world, I mean, it's really interesting. Saturn's in Aquarius and will be for another 2 and a bit years, or about 2 years. It's interesting that the internet came to the world, like WW, the World Wide Web, was given to the world in August to 1991, which is a whole Saturn cycle ago. So Saturn in Aquarius gave us the World Wide Web, which had, freed a lot of people to information and gathering their own kind of news and, all kinds of things, social media, all kinds of stuff that happened in the last 30 years. So it feels as though we're going to the next level of, digital, like the World Wide Web is now going to support things like, the digital currency and, all that kind of stuff, which makes it, there's a lot of talk about the Internet of Things that will equalize humanity to be given the same support and access to, let's say, their own wealth. I'm just calling it the network of things, the network of things, and how everything's like connected up so much more, which is giving the meek, let's say the meek, a lot more opportunities. And this is, very much the Aquarius time. So it's exciting. It's exciting. Yeah.
All right, next one. My mouse doesn't want to work now.
Uh,
Oh, wrong
we're
way.
doing well with Mercury retrograde.
I know, but yeah. Okay. So this is like, so I love obviously watching the transits to the natal. So I've got software. You can do this by hand if you don't have software, obviously. And what I've done here for Bitcoin is I've actually plotted the transits to the natal positions, okay? And because Bitcoin is now 12 years old, it's just had a Jupiter return. And the Jupiter return is right here, where it just took off. There's a, called a breakout. And at the same time, I've just put here, when we had the great conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn at 0 of Aquarius, that was square Vesta at 0 degrees of Taurus. So this is also when it, this is injection point here of energy. And it just pretty much went to the high. When it was at the high, Mars was exactly conjunct Vesta at that high. And then we
Yeah,
could
right.
see, and then we can see the negative aspects we were talking about before with Saturn conjunct Mercury, Mars square Mercury, etc. So with financial astrology or trading, or if you want to use astrology, you can obviously put the transits on your charts, but you need, as I said, some technical analysis. You're not going to make a judgment solely on an aspect because you're going to get into trouble. Okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you might think, oh, that's going to be a positive aspect, and it just doesn't work. And often you get conflicting, some days you'll get a positive, negative, and you don't know. And usually those days doesn't really move. It stays sideways
Right.
energy.
But it's
So
also, I mean, we've seen a lot of squares activate stuff
they do.
as well. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
mm,
So it doesn't have to be that a square necessarily is going, because Mars is often volatile, so it will create action very quickly.
mm,
And it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative at all. So this is where it can get tricky if you haven't looked back, and don't recommend you doing this unless you have some technical analysis helping you. It's great for timing. Astrology is the timer, and Gans said, time is more important than price, because we know that we can time with planets. Okay.
mm.
And then we wanted to look at GameStop, that everyone's talking about, what happened with the this whole, Robin Hood and GameStop and everything, because it's like everyone's going a bit nuts with it.
It's
And
spurred everyone else on to get into the, a different game or their own game. Yeah. Mm.
but even the word, the GameStop, they're playing a game. Like there's all this sort of stuff that the
But
wording, the
has the stock
numerology.
market always been a game?
Yeah, well, it is pretty much. It's a
Yeah.
speculators, and
And
the
it showed us that in 2008, and when everything started down falling, it's like, what? They get away with this?
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
you know,
So this
it,
is supposed to be
mm.
retaliation for the bankers being bailed out as well. So, it's like they're just saying, we're going to stick it to you, sort of thing, which I love it because it's so Aquarian. I just, but the thing is, whether they knew it or not, they picked a stock that's Aquarian. Okay. This is a first trade chart.
Yeah, he's
And
got a
so,
baby. It's only
yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, look at it. I mean, it sells electronics. It's like an EB Games in Australia, and games. And so it's just amazing because it's got all this Aquarian energy in it anyway. So it sort of fixed the industry, and it also has a natal position in that Aquarius. So
I like the Mercury there at 29 Capricorn as well, like right at the edge,
the
right at
cusp,
the edge
yeah,
of Capricorn. We're not going to do it
which
the
we can
same
get.
way.
Yeah, yeah. And it's 19 years old. So it's not, well, its birthday will be on the 13th, so next week. And
Which is
that's a
the new moon.
yeah,
It
it's
was
a
born at the
metonic
same new
cycle.
moon. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you look at Gan's work, Gan always talks about, well, he's got a financial timetable. Actually, I won't go into that too much. You have to get my courses to find out more. So yeah, and the awesome thing about this is that
Look at the
Vesta,
Venus again. Venus at
yeah,
zero price at one
yeah,
Pisces.
I know there's so similarities here, Jules, and
Right.
also Vesta's at 0 degrees of Gemini. So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
there's an interesting thing here with the air signs. There's a lot of air in these
Of
these
course, the nodal
charts.
cycle is the same. Sagittarius and Gemini being 19 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, how interesting. And the other thing is, of course, Mercury retrograde. Kind of it was stationing just on those Uranus and Sun. And
yeah,
now is kind of
exactly.
heading towards that.
Yeah.
And I love that it's almost like it's inspiring others to get into the game.
Mm.
um, this is how we beat the system, to play the game, which so many people have never understood the way trading works. It's almost like an elite sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then so people that don't understand it, which have always been burnt by it, and was burnt in 2008, 2009 by the hedge funds who took their money,
Yep.
millions of dollars of savings, and just burnt it. Pretty much, it was just all gone because people don't understand how to play the game. It's like, yeah, I'll give all my savings to the hedge fund to, keep it safe for
Yep.
me. So, again, it's kind of, this is a really, really interesting, particularly interesting time on the planet for this
Well, I
reason.
think also the pandemic, there's more people at home and they're
Sure.
wanting to make
And
money somehow.
not spending their money
That's
because of
correct. And so,
traveling or whatever.
if
Yeah,
someone
true.
says to me, let's get together and we're going to make this thing, let's buy into it so it goes,
Yeah,
ballistic, which it did,
yeah,
quickly. I mean, these are, they're bets that can go up really quickly and also come down very quickly. So
yes, yeah,
it's, it's not for the faint-hearted, but the fact that they the hedge funds lost like 50% because they all short the market expecting these things to go down. That's how they make the money,
yeah.
and went the opposite direction. So they lost. I shouldn't laugh, but yeah. So if you look at
Well,
the chart,
playing around, yeah.
this is what it did. Okay, so again, I've plotted natal transits. Plotted transits to the natal, and you can see that when the actual peak, that the exact day, Jupiter was right on the natal Neptune.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, now in terms of midpoints, that's known as a speculator's midpoint. It's gain without effort, and Gang calls it price. It's like inflation, price beyond its true value.
Mm-hmm.
False hopes, it's a false hope. It's like a bubble, like when there was the tulip bubble, everyone got into tulips and it went up, 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 and then I don't know how quickly it just came down very quickly. So a lot of people
Right.
lost a lot of money. So
I mean, this is the thing about Jupiter, Neptune. It could go the other way too, depending on other sort of
yeah,
aspects going on as
yeah.
well. Yeah.
And I
Mm.
think today when I looked it up in the markets, it's actually gone down 60% now in
Oh,
this whole thing, because I haven't put in the new chart, but it's probably
yeah.
down here somewhere.
Okay.
So and then you can see you want to look at what's coming up for it. You can just plot some of the aspects. So I was thinking when Saturn gets to Neptune, that's probably not going to be a good thing. Because this Jupiter is going to give you the false hope, but then Saturn brings you back to reality. you know so there's things that you can look at here, but then there'll also be Jupiter will be conjunct the Sun, Uranus, later on as well. So there might be something interesting happening later on in Ferret, and there might be a shock something, but that's in April. So
Yes.
this is how it's interesting to look at all these things from a astrological point of view, because as we know, we fit in. Every generation is going to fit into the planetary archetypes that are happening in the skies, and the new generation is always thinks it's smarter than the older generation, and that's how it is. And they come up with new things and new ways, and I don't think that's this sort of is going to stop this whole thing.
No, it's here
So
to stay now. This is a new game. It's been introduced. It's
yeah,
been introduced, and people are going to kind of go with it. I just wanted to add to that GameStop chart. Neptune at 9 degrees of Aquarius is
yeah,
where the nodes of Neptune are. So
yeah,
Neptune is actually on its own node in this chart. Um, so pretty powerful for a collective kind of, not takeover, but game, that's
yeah,
kind of come into play. And it has to do with, the the Neptunian aspect of connecting the masses, you know, the invisible ways that we can do things as well.
Yeah, it's the
Right?
unified field, they call it.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah.
So
So,
I'm very kind of
just
interested in the nodes
sorry.
now, the planetary nodes, but yeah, anyway, sorry.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. This is just the outer wheel, the aspects for that high that I had on the trading chart. So,
Hmm.
you know, when we had the sun was conjunct Jupiter, exactly, pretty
On the
much on
Neptune.
the,
Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
Neptune is very magical, isn't it? Like we do love Neptune for those reasons.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, it's a very intriguing. I was just looking at here because when we have the Saturn square Uranus this year, the three of them, they're all in the fixed signs. I know because I'm a Cosmo, I just look at the fixed signs, and you can see that the fixed signs in the natal chart. Now, I can use past Fortuna in this chart because it's a time chart.
Okay, yeah.
I can't use it for Bitcoin because we're not sure about the exact time or location, so you can't use Fortuna for that. But when we had the high also, Mars was just coming up to the conjunction to
Right.
Fortuna.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, but this is going to be important in terms of these transits that are coming up for
Yeah.
GameStop. Yeah. So
I
anything
love
that's
that it
got,
was on the full moon that was, you know, the sun was conjunct Jupiter, the full moon was in Leo, and you know,
you know,
it's
it's like they
that
know they may even know the astrological cycles. I
well,
don't want to say they don't.
let's not be surprised about that because astrology's been kind of rising for a while now. There's a
Yeah.
lot more people onto it for sure.
I
Yeah.
think they've actually picked a really good stock because it's Aquarian. They knew what was happening. Um, you know, we don't know. It just seems
Mm,
so well
yeah.
planned to me. It seems well planned.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, keep an eye on all those things, hey?
yeah. Okay, and then before we finish, the last second that we go into from Feb, because we won't talk again for another 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
will be ruled by the moon. Okay, and that is the third decan, and that's from February 9 to 18th. And Mercury will be in there as well. Well, going retrograde, it'll still
Because
at that
Zeni of
last point.
Mercury,
Yeah.
because Zeni of Mercury and Sun, that's got to be quite significant somehow to
Yeah,
start off those
definitely.
15 days. Yeah.
Well, it's a sphere conjunction, so that's part of that trine. That
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Um, and so these are the ones ruled by the moon. This again, you can look through these when you watch the video again. But the card associated the third decan of Aquarius, the moon, so it's adaptability and corresponds with the Seven of Swords, air, mind, and reason. Keen intellect, creative imagination, idealistic, humanitarians, and dreamers. Now, in terms of the tarot, it's got a negative spin to it because it's, you know, the moon's always thought to be unstable, and he's walking around away with the sword. So, from Austin's book, it said in Hellenistic law, it's the face of Osiris, Lord of the underworld, death and resurrection. So it's got like an initiate moon changeable aspect to it. So negatively, it can be betrayal, deception, getting away with something is what they've been doing, and acting strategically. So taking it, you know, like the strategy involved here. So it's going to be interesting
Mm,
in the way that pans out for that. So yeah,
a
I
pretty
think that's
interesting
all I've
time.
got
Yes.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the end of my slides for today.
Thanks, Olga. Wow. Always amazing what we can get happening with you. Do you want to stop the share and we can
Yep.
close up? But hope you all enjoyed that information and looking into these interesting times with the fabulous Agent 33, Olga Morales.
Thank you.
Um, and so we'll be back in 2 weeks again. Keep an eye on the date and time. The time we're going to try and, time and date, we're going to try and keep it the same if we can.
We're going to keep to Mercury's Day. We want to do Mercury's Day.
Mercury Day.
Yeah.
Have fun with what's going on out there. It's very interesting times we are living in, and for astrology, of course. Keep an eye on what we're doing at the CIA, what's coming up next for our membership And of course, you can join a one-off webinar anytime, and it will be on, let me just get the details. It's coming up on February the 14th on the lunar nodes and the nectar of mortality. And one of our agents in France, Bernard Duchâtel, is going to be, he's done a lot of work with the Eastern philosophies and Eastern religions, and he has done a lot of research on the nodes, but more from the Hindu mythology perspective, which is, again, very much, you know, how we understand the nodes too, even in Western astrology. So that's going to be coming up. So if you're interested in that, let us know or get in touch. If you want to look at the other Bitcoin video that we've done, it's on the front page of our website. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe to our newsletters to get all the updates and information. And for now, we will say adios. Have a
Yes.
great week, and thank you again to the wonderful Olga for this transmission.
Mhm.
What are we going to do next time, Olga?
Surprise.
A surprise. We won't let you know. We'll keep it going. So look forward to seeing you in episode 3. All the best, everyone, and we will see you again soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.